back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. In today's video, we are starting out with a 12-ounce mason jar from Maker Flow Crafts, which I have already sanded and painted using apple barrel acrylic paints. Now, for this color, I just sort of made my own mixture and used this brown, gray, and this yellow color to sort of come up with like a butterscotch or caramel color, because the tumbler we're making today is going to be a sweet tea themed tumbler. So just, you can get some spray paint, you can get whatever color you want. I went with this color because, of course, the glitters that I'm using are sort of copper and dark coffee colored glitters. So I just sort of wanted something similar behind the glitter, even though the glitters we're using, the main glitter is a chunky glitter and it covers really nicely. There's no transparency about it at all, but I still wanted some kind of brownish color behind in case there were some spots that did not get covered with glitter. You wouldn't really be able to see it, or, it would just blend in really nicely. So once you have your tumbler painted, then you can go ahead and go in with your glitters. For this particular tumbler, I am using the Mod Podge method to apply my glitters. It is quickly becoming a favorite application of mine when applying my glitters. One, it saves me on my epoxy, and two, it adheres really well. So, but you can use the epoxy method to apply your glitters if you'd like, just whichever method you prefer, glitter glue, whatever. So we're going to go ahead and apply our glitter. And the first glitter color we are using is this color right here. Now, I'm not sure what the name of this particular glitter is. I purchased it from Amazon in a set of maybe like 8 or 10 glitters. So I will have that linked below. But as far as a color, I'm not sure what color it is. The next glitter we're going to be using is this glitter, and I will also have this one linked below as well. But I changed my mind. I actually was going to put them both on the tumbler at the same time, but I changed my mind and decided when I added my epoxy, I would mix in this finer cut glitter in with the epoxy and add it at that point. And that's what I did. You'll see that later. And this is what the tumbler looks like once I completed the Mod Podge and glittering process. And you'll see here, I was contemplating using this finer cut glitter at this point, and then I decided, like I said earlier, to mix it in with my epoxy at a later time and apply it then. So what you'll do at this point is you'll just sit your tumbler aside, make sure the Mod Podge and the glitter, they're dried really, really well. And then if you want to seal it, you can. I don't think I sealed mine because it's all one color, so if it mixes with one another, it's okay. But if you want to seal your glitter, you can before adding your coat of epoxy. So I have my tumbler on the turner, and you can see I have left my tape on the rim. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and epoxy this tumbler. You can see I'm adding my glitter in. And once the tumbler has been epoxied for about 30 minutes, I will pull the tape off. Very important step. Do not forget to pull your tape off because it will cure with your epoxy to the tumbler, and it's going to cause one, a hassle trying to get the tape off, and two, it could lift and pull up the epoxy that you have added to your tumbler. So we're just adding about 15 milliliters of epoxy. Now this is a chunky glitter and I'm adding more glitter to it. So this epoxy is going to soak up, pretty good with that chunky glitter. But that's okay because I like to add, several coats of epoxy on my tumblers, but I like to have thinner coats so the tumbler is not so heavy and bulky. But if you would like a thicker coat of epoxy, then by all means you can add more epoxy. But for this tumbler, like I said, I think I added about 15 milliliters, and you can see I'm just spreading it on, kind of pushing down a little bit to make sure that that glitter gets all mixed in really well. The bubbles, any micro bubbles that might form, would be pushed out. So once you apply your epoxy with your glitter, then you're just going to let that cure overnight or ever how long your epoxy says. What I like to do is add my epoxy in the evenings and just let it cure overnight while I'm sleeping. And then that way, the next morning when I get up, it's ready to start the next step. But again, whatever works for you, whatever your process is, you do however you'd like to do. That's just what works best for me. Um, I do all my prep work and, sanding, painting, things like that in the morning. I go ahead and cut my decals and things like that. And then, like I said, in the evenings, I will place my cups on the turner, add my epoxy, and then as I'm preparing dinner and doing all the evening things that I have to do, it can be curing. And then while I'm sleeping, of course, it just cures overnight. So, but you can see how this fine glitter, this darker copper color glitter, just really darkens that up a little bit and makes it just really look like sweet tea. So, because of how the mason jar is shaped and due to where the lid screws on the tumbler itself, what I'm doing here is I am putting some painter's tape down and I'm just exposing a tiny bit of stainless steel. And the reason I am doing that is because we want to create an adherence between the epoxy and the tumbler. So I have sanded that part of the tumbler and I'm just adding my tape. So when I add my epoxy, the epoxy has something to cling to other than just the glitter. And we're going to be using this. Artistry Epoxy's Hyperspeed Tumbler Glaze for this layer of epoxy. I have mentioned this tumbler glaze in a previous video and I absolutely love it. It is amazing. So I just wanted to show the process of adding the tape to the tumbler and why we do that. Now, this is a very fast curing tumbler glaze, so we'll want to pull up that tape a lot quicker than we would if we were using a slower curing epoxy. And again, I think I used 15 milliliters of epoxy for this layer. And once my first layer of epoxy was cured, I did sand the tumbler, wiped it off with some rubbing alcohol and a coffee filter, and then went in with this coat of epoxy. Okay, so the little decals you see on the table there in the corner, those I printed off on water slide. If you're not familiar with water slide paper, um, it is a super cool product that you print on your printer, and then using water, you apply them to your item. Now, this is a particular kind of water slide in that this water slide does not need to be sealed. So I printed it off, and off camera, I do have a little container of lukewarm water. You want it to be warm. You don't want it to be cold or hot. If it's too hot, sometimes it can cause the ink to run. If it's too cold, the backing will not peel off very easily or quickly. So what I typically do is I get some hot water in this container, and then I just let it sit for a little bit until it cools off and gets like room temperature. But, however you want to do that as well, that's up to you. Now, what you want to do is you want to wet your tumbler and then apply the decal. And what I'm doing here is I'm just sliding the backing off. I did accidentally tear a little bit of the straw there as I was trying to pull this off. I have noticed with the no seal water slide, I do have a little bit more difficulty with it than other water slides that you have to seal. I don't know if it's just me or if it's this particular brand or what, but nonetheless, it turned out fine. I just kind of pieced them together. I could not find my silicone squeegee, so I was trying to use this Mod Podge squeegee, but it was not working. It was making things worse. So I did wind up finding my silicone squeegee and using that, because what you want to do is you want to squeegee out all of the water behind the decal. You do not want any water remaining behind your decal, and because it can cause several problems. One, epoxy and water don't mix. And two, if it stays behind there, it can cause molding issues down the road. So you just want to squeegee out all of the water and then let that dry before you add your coat of epoxy. Okay, so for the top of the mason jar, to just sort of clean up where the glitter ends. I did cut this vinyl striping out of Tech Wrap Crafts textured vinyl, and the measurement was 0.229 by 11.317. Now, I put that vinyl striping on the tumbler and then decided it was too thick. I did not like it. So I pulled it off and took it over to my trimmer and just cut it in half. So I'm not sure of the exact measurement that it wound up being as far as the thickness of it, but the original measurement was 0.229. Okay, once the vinyl striping was applied, I did go ahead and add another coat of epoxy. And now I'm just wiping it down, cleaning it up, making sure there's no dust or debris on the tumbler because we are going in with our words, Southern as sweet tea. So I thought that was very fitting and a cute little saying because we all know sweet tea is a Southern thing. And I personally am not a sweet tea fan, but growing up, my mom made sweet tea all the time. And I guess that's why I don't like it now. But my daughter loves it. My husband, he loves my mom's sweet tea. So I just thought that was really cute. So what I did was I took some Oracal 651 in black vinyl and made an outline or an offset for my words. And then I cut my words in Tech Wrap Crafts textured vinyl and just layered that on top. So once you apply your vinyl, you just want to push it down really good with your felt squeegee. And I use the felt just to avoid making any marks or lines on the wording. Um, I know the transfer tape is on top of the vinyl, so it probably wouldn't hurt it to use the hard side of your squeegee, but at any rate, whatever. Um, so we're just adding our words, and then we are going to go in with another coat of epoxy. Now you can seal your vinyl prior to adding your coat of epoxy. In fact, I know a lot of tumbler makers do suggest that you seal your vinyl, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And that's only because a lot of times when I place my vinyl on my tumbler, I will go in with my heat gun and lightly heat up the vinyl just a tiny, tiny bit. You don't want to overheat it because that can cause the vinyl to not stick. But if you do heat it just a little bit, um, and then press it down with your thumb or your squeegee, it really causes a really good adherence to your tumbler. So, whatever you want to do, if you want to seal your vinyl or just go in with your heat gun and press it down, that's up to you. I personally have very few times had issues with my vinyl lifting on my tumblers. So, again, I don't seal my vinyl a lot, but that's not to say that it couldn't happen. Um, Quality is a high priority of mine. So I would never create something that I felt was not going to be durable and last the test of time. So it's not that I'm taking an easy way out or anything like that. Like I said, I just don't have a lot of issues with my vinyl lifting. But enough about that. Um, so right here, I'm just weeding out some of the little pieces that didn't weed when the vinyl was cut. And also, something I like to do when I place my vinyl on my tumblers, I like to leave them on the turner and place them that way because I'm standing over top of it. I can see it line up really well. And for me, that just works. But again, whatever works for you, everyone has their own way of doing things. As long as you get the final result, I guess that's what is important. But like I said, once you have your vinyl on there, you can either seal it or not, whatever. And then you're ready for your probably next to final coat of epoxy. I wound up placing 2 coats of epoxy on this before it was completed. Um, but again, that is all going to be preference and also going to be determined by if your tumbler needs sanding or anything like that after you've added your coat of epoxy. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my silicone squeegee and I'm going to wet the back side of my tumbler because we are going to add 2 small lemons on what I'm calling the back side of the tumbler. So I'm just wetting it with my silicone brush, making sure it's good and damp so that we can add the water slide. Once the water slide was completely dry, I went in with another 15 milliliters of epoxy. And now, while that is curing, I'm going to go ahead and work on the lid. So I took this faux lemon and just cut it in half. I have sanded the lid, and we're going to be using some UV resin to adhere the lemon and these glow in the dark ice chunks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pin stopper and just place it in the straw hole of the lid to prevent the epoxy from seeping in to that area. So I will just plug that hole up and then go ahead with my UV resin and make some circles around. Once the tumbler had cured, I did go in with another 15 milliliters of epoxy and let that cure. And look how cute this is. I just love it. The sparkle from the glitter, the shine. I absolutely love the Flynn Sisters epoxy, and it just makes it so shiny. Southern is sweet tea. I mean, this is perfect for a born and raised Southern girl. I absolutely love it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section below.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell for notifications so you don't miss any videos. And don't forget to stay tuned. I do have a sneak peek coming up right now for the next video that will be coming out. So until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I hope everyone has a blessed day.